You are now listening to theGrio's Black Podcast Network, Black Culture Amplified.
Like one summer, I had to stay with my aunt, with my cousins, and like my older cousin, Bernard, right, he was going to teach me how to fight. Because my aunt, she just let us play. She used to live in this huge house in New Jersey, so she just let us, like all the boy cousins, roam around all summer. So she bought us boxing gloves, and I was the youngest and the smallest. But my cousin Bernard, who everybody knew had hands like bricks, said he was going to teach me how to fight. So we put on the gloves, and this dude just starts pummeling me, right? And I just kept going with it because, like, I probably had, like, juvenile, early onset CTE, but he just kept hitting me, and I just kept taking it. Until one time, I all of a sudden got a licking. And this was a big thing for me because I almost knocked him silly. Now, this was a dude who could fight so good. Like, I saw him knock out a grown man for, stealing candy from the official neighborhood candy lady, Miss Betty Jo. And so I was so happy. And Bernard took off his glove. He was mad. And he says, okay, the lesson's over. And I was like, nah, why? And I wanted to continue. So from then on, he started saying, there's one thing about Mike. Mike will fight. And all of my life, that saying followed me. Like, if you go to my hometown now, and I ain't proud of this or, bragging, but when people, if you ask them about me and they say, like, there's one thing about Mike, I promise you that they will follow it up with, well, Mike will fight. But I'm not a violent person because violence is different from fighting. And I want to welcome you to theGrio Daily, the only podcast that is willing to talk to you about violence in the white community. I'm Michael Harriot, world-famous white peopleologist, and this is theGrio Daily. Now, according to Merriam-Webster, the definition of violence is the use of physical force so as to injure, abuse, damage, or destroy by distortion, infringement, or profanation. And there's a second definition, an intense, turbulent, or furious and often destructive action or force. I think about this a lot, right? I think about violence a lot. It's not like I like violence, but I'm consumed by how America characterizes violence. Like, for instance, right? Like, we think that it is violent to snatch money from a person or to punch them or push them down. But we don't think of it as violent to take away their health care and condemn them to a life of poverty because they got sick one time. We don't think it's violent to subject children to unequal schools. But if those children are poor and rob somebody, that's considered violent. If you hit someone in the head with a stick, that's considered violent. But if you hit all the black people over the head with racism, that's not considered violent. And it's funny because all of those fit the definition according to that thing I read called the dictionary. Like, think about, like, the January 6th insurrection, the Ku Klux Klan attempted coup.
States against enemies, foreign and domestic!
Whatever you want to call the charge of the white brigade that happened at the Capitol on January 6, 2020. According to the Chicago Project on Security and Threats, 98% of the 532 people arrested by federal authorities were non-Hispanic white people. 52% lived in counties that were more than 70% white, and the vast majority, 87% of them, had no connections to existing far-right militias or military groups. Like we're told, like it was the Proud Boys.
Hey! Man, glad to see you guys. You guys are patriots. Look at this guy. He's got covered in blood. God bless you.
It was Republicans. It was people who were outraged, who came from across America. But the only thing that these people had in common was whiteness. They live around white people. They work with white people. They're from white families. And they are white. They were more white than they were Republican. Most of them identified as Republican, but not as many as who identified as white. It was just white people. But we can't say that because there has to be a characterization of this event as a political action or people who fell for the big lie and not contextualize it as what white people have done throughout the history of this country. White people were mad when black people got the vote, and it resulted in a nationwide terrorist event called Reconstruction. White people were mad when their children were going to go to school with black children, and it resulted in the segregation movement. It shifted the parties in this country. White people were upset when black people protested police brutality and created a parallel All Lives Matter movement. No matter what black people do, whether it is protests, because the Black Lives Matter protests were characterized as violent, whether it is peaceful, because the civil rights movement was characterized as violent, whether it is serving our country, because after World War II, we lynched black people. After World War I, we lynched black soldiers for staring black people in the eye. They call that the Red Summer of 1919. But we don't characterize that as violent. We call it Reconstruction. We call it the quote unquote Red Summer. We call it pro-segregation. We call it states' rights. But black people, we're just violent. But we really do need to talk about violence in the white community. For instance, why do so many white people have to own guns? You know, if you even talk about common sense gun control, white people will lose their And there are polls that show that most Americans, black people, Hispanic people, Asians, brown people in general, believe that we could prevent mass shootings by enacting common sense gun reform. Most Americans, except for white Americans, support that. But we don't like to say that white people are promoting violence. Most people in America support a woman's right to choose, but we don't characterize forcing women to carry out a pregnancy by using government laws to incarcerate the ones that don't. We don't characterize that as violent, but we incarcerate violent criminals who sell drugs to people who want to take drugs. That's not violent, according to America, because it protects white people. So we should rethink the idea of violence because that is a destructive force. The healthcare industry is robbing people of their right to live. The criminal justice system is a destructive force that disrupts black lives in communities all over America. It's violent to stab someone in the chest, but if you poison a black community's drinking water, that's just something that happened. And on the end of all of these disparities, there is always black communities and black people who suffer the consequences of white people saying, it ain't my problem, it ain't my fault. How is that not violent? So let me tell you a story, right? So in Alabama, in 2015, this 16-year-old black kid went with his friends to break into a house and rob it. And the kids come out, all of them are teenagers. They come out and the police are waiting for them. One of the teenagers raises his gun at the police, so they said, and the police shoot the black kid dead.
Washington remembers his son as a quiet kid who dreamed of playing football for the University of Florida.
Full of energy when he was real young, just full of energy. After high school, he wanted to go to like the Florida Gators.
Now, you can argue whether or not the police should be incarcerated for that. You can argue whether or not he feared for his life. But you can't argue about what they did. See, they didn't charge the police officer. They charged the kid's friends with his death. And one of the kids decided to fight it, and they sentenced him to 60 years in prison using the logic that if you are involved in a violent crime, just robbing someone's house, and someone dies from that crime, then you are responsible.
He did commit a crime.
He did. And he should have got the proper time for the crime that he committed, the burglary and the stolen property. So 65 years on a young guy, 15, who didn't kill no one. Didn't kill no one and didn't shoot at no one. Alabama.
So the police wasn't responsible for that death. His friends who decided to go robbing with him were incarcerated. And the longest sentence was 60 years. How is that not violent? How is that justice? How is the lack of equality and opportunity in America not violent? But when a child or an adult tries to subvert the law and equal out the institutional discrimination against him, it's all of a sudden a threat to America and a violent act. And I'm not saying that there aren't criminals who aren't violent. What I'm saying is that according to the definition, America itself is an act of violence. If you want to stop the violence, which is a great song that Black people have been talking about since the 80s, then you can't just focus on the Black community. You have to focus on the violence and the silence of the white community who whine about violence, but do nothing about the systemic, institutional thing that we call white supremacy. We have to ask the white community to address the violence in their community. And we have to ask you to download the theGrio app, to subscribe, to listen every day on your favorite platform, and to tell a friend about it. And as always, we'll leave you with a famous Black saying: bad boys move in silence, but white people move in violence. We'll see you next time on theGrio Daily. Thank you for listening to theGrio Daily. If you liked what you heard, please give us a 5-star review, download the theGrio app, subscribe to the show, and share it with everyone you know. Please email all questions, suggestions, and compliments to podcasts@thegrio.com.
You are now listening to theGrio's Black Podcast Network, Black Culture Amplified.
You're watching the Blackest Questions podcast with Christina Greer.
In this podcast, we ask our guests 5 of the blackest questions so we can learn a little bit more about them and have some fun while we're doing it.
Okay, so this is a trick question.
We're also going to learn a lot about Black history, past and present.
Beautiful. I learned a wonderful fact today. Great.
So here's how it works. We have 5 rounds of questions about us. Black history, the whole diaspora, current events, you name it. With each round, the questions get a little tougher.
Oh, you got me. Let me see.
I have no idea.
I knew you were going to go there, Dr. Greer.
Subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcast and share it with everyone you know.